everybody that's invited or that has signed up for the seminar to join, but we thought it might be nice to start on time. So my name is Pia Wagberg, and I work for RISE, and together with Helena Halonen. Wave, Helena. You can wave a little bit. No, she's oh, there she is. Thank you, Elena. So Elena and I have been running these seminars now for a couple of years, and this will be our 10th seminar. And we're very happy to have this subject today. That's recycled packaging and recycling and reuse. And we will have two presentations, this whole seminar will be recorded and later posted on YouTube. So it's possible for you to look at it after the, if you come in late, it would be most possible to look at it later on. Everybody that are participating in the seminar will be in email eventually, and there you, after the YouTube clip is posted, you will get the email with contacts and so forth. And if you're not on the invitation list for these seminars, you can send an email to Helena or I and say that you want to be part of the invitation list. We will take all questions in the chat room, so be ready for all the questions. You can post them at any time, but we will answer them after both of the presenters have been given their presentations. So by that, I think I have said everything, all the administrative work, and I will actually start by presenting the first speaker, which is Annika Bjärestrand, a colleague of mine. She's a research associate at RISE, and she has 40 years of experience in paper industry. And her specialty is stock design and recycled fibers, which makes this presentation very suitable for you, Annika. So I'll come back and introduce Guy later on, but at this point, Annika, the floor is yours. We are looking forward to listening to paper-based packaging in the circular economy.
Okay, thank you, Pia. And welcome everyone to this presentation about paper-based packaging in the circular economy. Or maybe we should talk about circular resource economy, where material recycling should be seen within the overall life cycle of products and packaging. Today, we reach the global overshoot day when the renewable resources of the earth exceed what the earth can regenerate in a given year after less than 2/3 of the year. And if everyone lived as in Sweden, that day would come already in April. So it is obvious that we really need to use our resources in a much better way in the future. Packages is all around us and are crucial for the containment, protection, distribution, and presentation of products. The package should prevent damage to the product it contains. But packages also create a lot of waste that we need to utilize to have a sustainable usage of resources. To start using our resources in a better way, we must look to the whole value cycle of packaging and products. The value cycle starts at the production, where the package is designed and value is created by the refining of raw materials into valuable products. The cycle continues by the packing or filling of goods into the package and is then distributed so that it can reach the consumers. Through correct handling and sent to collection by the consumer after use, the value of the packaging can be maintained. And when the package reaches its end of life, it should be recycled so that the raw material can be retained by good practice in collection and sorting. In order to design for recyclability, the limitations in collection and sorting have a big impact and are crucial for the possibility to utilize our resources. Consumers also need a clear communication to support their sorting of paper products for recycling. All parts of the value cycle needs to be coordinated and assessed to manage the value of packages. Regulation and legislation is the base for formulating goals and strategic targets for recycling of packaging products. And communication is key to ensure fulfillment of the legal requirements and increase recycling by the innovation and design of packages. The new Circular Economy Action Plan presents measures to make sustainable products the norm in the European Union and also make circularity work for people, regions, and cities. The aim is to reinforce the requirements for packaging with focusing on reducing the complexity of packages and the amount of packaging waste by designing for reuse and recycling. The reduce principle promotes packaging redesign and increased material efficiency. It is related to the initial stage of the packaging cycle. When a product reaches its end of life, reuse and recycling provide an opportunity to extend keeping of the materials in our economy. The reuse packaging loop has an intended purpose to reuse packaging as many cycles as possible. But when that is not longer possible, recycling is the third component of the reduce, reuse, and recycle waste hierarchy. The recycling packaging loop has a purpose to return resources as secondary raw material back to the production of new products. To understand the challenge, we should take a look at what the packaging waste market looked like. In 2018, 41% of the waste generated in EU by packages was paper and cardboard packages. We use more than twice the weight of paper-based packaging compared to any other product. For example, plastic, 33 kilos per person, and paper, 71 kilos per person. But comparing number of packages would, however, show a really different picture, as plastic packages are mostly very light. And because of this light weight, it can, in life cycle analysis, score very good. But when adapting a more holistic view, it has other implications on the environment, for example, causing microplastics. And of the plastic in the oceans, single-use plastic stands for 50% of all plastics. And that is also the least recycled material. According to Eurostat, in 2017, paper and board has had the highest recycling rate, and the mean recycling rate was 85%. of the collected packaging that went back into production of new papers. Plastic had only a recycling rate of 42% calculated on the collected plastic packaging waste. EU have set goals for the minimum recycling rate that each member country should achieve by 2030. These figures seems to be questioned and maybe be revised to even higher values than what I show here. Even though paper and board are at the mean value already reaching the target, there are a lot of member countries that still have challenges to reach these values. And for plastic, we all have some way to go to reach the 55% recycling target, which probably will be increased, as I said. And to reach those recycling targets, large investments in collection and sorting have to be made. It is very difficult to really calculate the recycling of plastics because of the trade of goods that comes into the EU and the different lifespan of plastic articles. Some are single use and some plastic articles can be used for several years or even decades. So it's really difficult to calculate how much is put on the market and how much is put to waste by the consumers. However, in 2018, 29 million tons of plastic was collected, and of that 18 million tons was plastic packages. But only 7.5 million tons, 42%, was recycled into new plastic packages products. We have a big challenge in increasing the recycling rate of plastics. And this is further complicated by the differences in different plastic qualities that puts a lot of challenge to the collection and sorting. If we now concentrate on paper packages, we see on the left the production of different papers where packaging papers makes up more than 50% of all production. And to the right, we can see that it uses 75% of paper for recycling. For example, case material or corrugated board use more than 90% of its raw material from recovered paper. And although the production of paper and board in EU decreased during the pandemic year of 2020, packaging paper actually increased and made up for 58% of the production. So paper for recycling is the most important raw material for paper and board production, as it stands for 55% of all raw material, fiber-based raw material. And this is also a big challenge, maintaining the quality of the fiber material and the produced packaging papers to have this sustainable resource economy. One important strategy is the extended producer responsibility, where producers are responsible for their products and the impact they have on the environment throughout the whole value chain. This involves upstream impacts, including selection of the raw material and the production, and downstream impact, the use and disposal of the products. Producers should design their products to be environmentally friendly throughout its life cycle. Packaging and the paper manufacturers may add different treatments to paper at various stages. Some treatments are applied during the paper making process and other during the conversion process, where flat paper sheets is converted into packages. Some of the common treatments applied to paper-based packaging may present real challenges to the recycling, so that we can have a good use of our fiber resources. And therefore, different guidelines on the production of packaging have been issued to help increase recyclability. And one guideline for paper-based packages is issued by CEPI, SITPA, ACE, and FEPCO, and give guidance on how to specify and design paper-based packaging in a way to ensure high-quality recycling by the paper industry, by having eco-design that limit the addition of detrimental substances in the production, and eco-management that limit the fiber losses in the use and recycling stages. And through it all, the environmental impact should be minimized. To achieve this, it is crucial to connect packaging design and manufacture with the available end-of-life systems, creating a closed-loop material system. To engage and connect industry members from across the fiber-based packaging value chain, EU and CEPI have started an initiative for Evergreen, where also RISE is a participant. And in this initiative, there are members from across, from paper and board producers, packaging converters, brand owners and retailers, technology and material suppliers, waste collectors and sorters. So the aim is to look at design for recycling with a holistic view of all parts of the value chain to boost the contribution of fiber-based packaging in a circular and sustainable economy. And to ensure recyclability, and especially what happens in the recycling paper mill, the package must be designed to be easily repulpable with a high yield of fibrous material and as little coarse rejects as possible. The resulting fiber material should be homogeneous, for example, to give the paper a good appearance, and the additives should not lead to tacky components, causing problems in the paper machine equipment, or give chemical accumulation in the process water, preventing and interfering with paper chemistry. One important thing is purity of materials, and that is a major problem. Among the causes that may compromise the purity is all the additives that is used in the packaging production in order to make the production process easier and improve the properties of the packages. In this guideline and also all other guidelines, there are recommendations for different additives and laminates, barriers, and so on. What is lacking is really the guide to how to choose between different possibilities. And beyond choosing different additives and in the production, if we are to have a sustainable design and production and really use our resources in a good way, we must ensure that we also maintain the fiber quality. This is something that have not been addressed in the existing guidelines or the recyclability testing methods. But if we don't consider also the fiber quality, we can never reach a sustainable recyclability of the resources, as we will degrade the quality of the most essential raw material, the fibers. So when designing new packages or looking for new products, for example, replacing plastics, the design must not compromise the fiber integrity and the paper-making ability of the fiber material. Additives, both in the paper-making and converting steps of the production, should not compromise the quality of the fibers, negatively affecting the fiber surface or the bonding ability of the fiber. This is really essential, as with more and more of the raw material coming from paper for recycling, the number of times a fiber will be used increase. And today in Europe, the average time a fiber is used is 3.6 times. And the typical opinion of how often a fiber can be used is 5 to 7 times. But as was shown by Kreplin, Putz, and Schabel in a laboratory trial, they found that the fibers can stand recycling at least 15 cycles. After a small decrease in some properties during the first and second cycle of a virgin fiber, here the water retention value, which is essential for the bonding of fibers, the following cycles did not change the properties of the fiber material. So, could it be that as long as a fiber remains a fiber and is not broken down to fines, it will maintain most of its properties? But for this to be true, we must not compromise the fiber quality with the design of packaging products. To design and manage packages, a lot of different steps in the value chain need to be monitored and controlled. And at RISE, we can aid in all those steps, from the choice of raw materials and additives in the production, as well as the production itself, through the converting, including surface treatment, printing, and box making, life cycle analysis, and consumer behavior, to mention some of our competencies. And then, when the material come back as new raw materials, we have the labs and pilots to evaluate the recyclability of their paper for recycling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annika. We will take the questions later on. There are some questions in the chat forum, and that's good. Keep them coming. But now we will introduce Guy, Guy Lacey from DS Smith, and we're very happy to have you here, Guy. You are the Next Generation Technology Director at DS Smith, and you also have a lot of experience in the paper industry, about 25 years, and with a background in paper making and stock design. But right now, as I understand, you're looking very much on the R&D, looking for new digital technologies for both paper making and new products, which is very exciting. So we are happy to have you here and looking forward to listening to your presentation.
Thank you, Pia.
So the floor is yours, Guy.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, pleasure to be here. I've worked very closely with Bryce and with Annika, so it's an honour to share the screen with her. So I'll start off and trying to really link from Annika's presentation into what we see in the paper industry as a whole. I'll start off, if I may, with a brief introduction of DS Smith and who we are and what we do. We are a packaging business. We're a packaging company across Europe and now into the United States of America. And we're really focusing on state-of-the-art packaging design and really sustainable packaging. And we are a packaging business that's supported by a network of paper mills, and they are then in turn supported by a network of recycling depots and facilities and so on. So you can see we're already operating what we believe very strongly is a circular business model. We're across the world. We're a global business. We're in 37 countries, 30,000 employees, around 6 billion in revenue, and more than 270 sites. But our heart is in Europe. I say that from the UK, but it's still the same. Our heart is in Europe. We are listed on the London Stock Exchange, but we're across Europe and into the States. Our paper mill network is across Europe and into North America. And you can see there, I won't go through every site, but we've got 14 European mills, 2 in North America. Of those mills, 2 of them are virgin mills, integrated kraftliner mills. The remaining mills are all 100% recycled. We produce around 4 million tonnes a year. And one of our key things with our recycling team is we were able to make, collect and recycle packaging within 14 days. With the speed of that loop is really critical to the quality of recycling. Taking Annika's point about the fibres, we definitely see that the speed of this loop, the speed of bringing the packaging from the end user through the recycling loop, back into the paper mills, back into packaging and back to the customer, we really take pride in making that loop as fast as possible because that protects the fibres. The fibres retain their strength, they retain their paper-making ability if we can keep those fibres moving quickly through that circular loop. And we've stopped talking about the raw material as waste paper. We don't talk about it as a waste because it's a resource. And it's down to us as the recyclers, paper makers and packaging designers to keep that fibre in the state that it can then come back into that loop, ready to go through the loop again. So for us, it's very much a focus on quality raw materials collected by our recycling division, because if we can get quality fibres into our process with as low a level of contamination as possible, then the value losses, the circularity of that loop can increase. So we've really, in the past few years, we've really focused more and more on the circular element of our business, because it is what we do. Now, I was very proud that I sort of said in a seminar, well, we are a circular business. That's what we do. I don't think the circular economy sees us purely in that state, but we've partnered with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation to try and help us further our circularity. Because I think we were complacent. We thought, well, we're operating a circular business model, so nothing to see here. But actually looking at your business through a circular lens and working on that circularity can only bring higher sustainability, better quality, and ultimately better products for our end consumers. So we operate these circular design principles, which is touching on very much what Annika said. We build a product that protects brands and products and helps our end users display and sell their products. We do that by optimizing the materials and the structure. We use no more material than necessary. So we design very efficient packages that use the lowest amount of fibre packaging that we can. In that design, we also design in the recovery of those materials. and the maintenance of their quality. Those two are linked. That's why they're in the same colour. You can't de-link those two. You've got to design your pack with the recovery and the recycling in mind. And if we can do those two, we maximise the efficiency of the supply cycle. The fibres can come back through much faster back into our process again. They're of a higher, they retain more of their original quality, and they can then withstand more cycles in that circular economy. So I strongly believe we operate a circular business model. We start off with a natural product. You can see here we've got the timber, the water, the power. We're producing pulp, and then that pulp can flow into our cycle, into packaging, into boxes, and then onto our end customers. Now we've got more end customers than these categories, but broad categories: industrial, e-commerce, and retail generally are the main categories that you'll see. And then that packaging can come back round into a recycled mill, and it can then move around that loop. And now I'm going to go against Annika here. I think, Annika, you quoted up to 15 times. Obviously, the higher the number, the better. I'm quoting 25, certainly up to 25 times. And I think this is one of the challenges for us. There are many, many studies out there. When you get asked, well, how many times can your fibre go around this loop? The common answer was 7. It's gone up to 15. We're quoting 25. Fisher International actually quoted greater than 50, just purely on a mass balance of fibre. They said, well, the fibre has to be going around 50 times, because if it wasn't, you'd need far more kraft pulp than you consume. So I've gone for 25. But there's no doubt, if we look at our individual processes, we are not losing fibre to the level that it would be a 15 multiple cycle. It is easily in our process more than 25 times. If we achieve that by having the fibres being reused 25 times, let's say, and you bring in fresh material from the forests as pulp, you then allow those natural materials in the forest environment to regenerate, and you get the most use out of your fibres. And when the fibre is no longer usable, you make sure its end of life is regenerative or restorative. So that's really the end goal we want to get to. We want to maximise the circularity by protecting the fibres so that they come back in as good a state that they can be remade into paper. But when we have completed that journey and it's no longer of any use to us as a paper maker, we have the best possible end of life for that material. The other thing that I think stands us out from other sort of circular business models is our whole business model is circular. We as DS Smith, we don't just recycle DS Smith packaging. We, as the paper industry, recycle paper, regardless of its source. So actually, we're bringing back not just the material that we have produced, we're bringing back a multitude of fibre-based items. The challenge for us in recent years has been to expand that scope to recover materials that we previously would have said were challenging and we did not want in our stream because they destroyed the circularity. And I use 2 examples there. You can see a coffee cup, and you can also see on-the-go or food-based packaging. And that's really where we as the fibre-based packaging industry are now moving into, because we're seeing more and more substitution of plastics, and it will be in that arena. It will be the on-the-go packaging, it'll be the food packaging, the direct contact packaging with barriers. But we as a paper industry are open to this, and we are discussing through for Evergreen how we can increase the recycling of those products. Because let's be honest, industrial, e-com and retail, those recycling rates are very high. Annika touched on it, 80% plus. Where we're missing recycling rates is in the on-the-go, the sandwich packs, the coffee cups, the food packaging, and so on, that has traditionally been a challenge for us. And we shouldn't be shy. I think the paper industry has done fantastically well in looking at its linear aspects of circularity. So by linear, I mean those that aren't circular and there are one trip, generally energy consumption, things like that. Unless it's coming from a renewable source, it's a single route, it's a consumption. So we've looked at this in detail, and the CEPI statistics show power consumption has been reduced by 25%. Fresh water is dropped by 50% since 1991. CO2 down 50%. So we as the paper industry are doing incredibly well. DS Smith have set very challenging targets in our sustainability report to reduce all these metrics to make sure we can build the circularity and improve the circularity in our business. This doesn't come without challenge. We all know, the paper makers on the call, that freshwater consumption, reducing fresh water, just increases the challenges from other materials that are coming in with packaging. So we have to be very, very clever. We've got some innovative technologies coming in to improve our water cleaning so that we can accept more and more materials with barrier coatings and so on, but continue to reduce our fresh water consumption. And again, make sure that the water is used in a more circular manner and returned in the right way. So that's enough about the industry in general and DS Smith. The reality of recycling comes next. Can't get away from the fact that to the public, maybe a recycling mill is just another big factory with steam coming out of it. Sometimes people call it smoke. You know, there are lots of opinions on what we do, but we are a valuable resource. This is the mill where I am based in the UK, Kemsley Mill. There's nearly 1 million tonnes of fibre comes into this plant every year. But otherwise, if it wasn't recycled, where would it go? It'd probably get buried or burnt. And we see there's real value in keeping that fibre back into the process, back into packaging, and back around the loop again. So it's a valuable asset, not just obviously for DS Smith, but for the UK, because we consume 1/3 of the recovered fibre that is used in the UK in that one mill. And it's the same story wherever you go to our paper mills. So it's a valuable asset. What have we seen in the past? When I started in the 90s, packaging was brown, maybe with some black print, full of staples, but it was brown, no doubt about it. And then more and more as we've progressed through, you can see that there's more and more print. We started to get the white liners coming through. You started to get graphic paper technologies coming through. More colour, more print, more coatings. Now, does that mean more problems? Possibly. But you can definitely see that the raw material has changed massively from something that was mainly fibre-based to now it'll have coatings, it'll have varnishes, it'll have more inks, it will have filler, and so on. You can see it's so concerned now. We've even got Boris Johnson there looking at a bale of OCC. But you can see behind him just how the OCC has changed from when I started back in the 90s. So that's really the sort of retail industrial volume, what we call OCC, old corrugated containers. We now see growing domestic volume, particularly last year with the COVID pandemic, the rapid shift to online. I think I saw in the news in the UK yesterday, the past year, 2020, we saw majority of people plan to stay shopping online, even post the pandemic. But the flip side to that is they're also seeing that they're running out of space in their recycling bin. And we had a campaign called The Wrong Bin, which we released last week, saying that we need to wake up to the fact that this is probably a permanent shift in the flow of our raw material. So coming away from retail bricks and mortar and into domestic collection. The domestic collection infrastructure may not be big enough to cope with that volume, although the councils say that it is. But we're pushing very hard for better, separate, source segregated collection of this material that's coming through the domestic stream. Why do we say that? Because we don't want it contaminated, and coming from what Annika said, that the way you treat the fibre, the way it's collected, the way it's brought back into the process just means it can go through more loops. It can have a longer life in our process. So source segregation for us is critical in what we're doing. So what are the challenges from domestic collection? Well, if you're source segregated, so you have a bin for fibre-based packaging, it's not so bad. It's exactly what we want. It's source segregated, it comes through to the mills, generally as a mixed paper or old corrugated containers, but also it can have a de-inking stream for newsprint and graphics. But what we see more commonly, and certainly in the UK, is this mixed recycled stream, where it's literally one bin for everything, for glass, for plastic, for papers. And that has to go into a facility, a MRF, a mixed recycling facility where there is a set of techniques used to sort out the recyclates from each other. But generally, on the whole, they are a negative paper pick. So they will take metals, plastic and glass from that material, and whatever's left is paper. Of course, it's not, because they are not 100% efficient in removing those materials. So very sadly, what we see is huge levels of contamination in a mixed recycling stream. And we've got a near-infrared unit at Kemsley that measures the contamination on every load coming in. And easily mixed collections from a mixed recycling scheme can have up to twice the weight of non-paper components compared to a separate collection. Sometimes even more. I mean, it's up to 6% plastic in some of those streams. And that's plastic that shouldn't be there in the first place. It's plastic bottles, it's plastic bags. It's not the barriers on the papers. But this is a real blocker to innovation in barriers, because the plastic loading we're seeing is a major problem for the paper mills. I've got a video here just to demonstrate. This is what comes out of a mill. This is just one line at Kemsley. There are 3 of these lines, and you can see this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is material that shouldn't be in the fibre stream. There are plastic bottles, bubble wrap, rigid plastics. There's even fabric. So this is material that hasn't actually come from the packaging. This has come from the poor separation of recyclates. So it goes back to the comment. Source segregation is key. If paper-based, fibre-based products can go into a single bin, then there's more capacity there to deal with laminates, coatings, and so on. But at the moment, you can see the challenge really we see in our mills at the moment is just the overwhelming, and it is overwhelming, amount of plastic coming forward. Then moving forward very quickly, you can see here are the waste streams, and you've got various waste streams coming from the mills. But plastics is the number one. Plastics is the number one threat we see in the paper mills. And why do we see that? If we just look at a percentage of losses from a mill, and this is all about the circular economy, we see that generally plastic, glass and grit, metal, ragga, which is more metal, and fibre, really the fibre is the biggest loss. If you factor in then wet, which is the as received, it's how it's disposed of, they're very similar. You look at the cost, and plastic is way out there in terms of cost. It dominates the cost of the recycling process, and is a major challenge for us. Very quickly coming on to the future. Supporting what Annika said, brand owners and consumers, they want clear guidance. But we have got a fantastic opportunity for the fibre-based packaging industry. Our product is absolutely amazing. It is natural, renewable, sustainable. It is universally recyclable, which plastics aren't. It is biodegradable, and it's lightweight and strong, and it is preferred by the consumer. So what's an opportunity? But we need to be clear and consistent in our messaging and in our recyclability guidelines. So, coming forward, there is a gap. We do see a gap in knowledge and understanding, because we are racing from plastics to fibre-based products, which is great. Innovating incredibly quickly in the fibre-based packaging field. But has innovation gone ahead of industry knowledge? I say this because if you look at the process, we screen with holes at 15 millimeters, then at 2, then with cyclones, and then we have 0.15 millimeter slots, and then we have our paper. A lot of innovation is trying to stop the plastic levels in that very early stage, in the 15 and 2 millimeter zone. And the innovation is going towards soluble or dispersed polymers, or we're going to metal foils that are not coated with a polymer, they're just a pure metal foil. Do we really understand the impact of these materials? Because they're actually being designed to bypass those stages. And if they bypass those stages, are they in the finished product? And we clearly don't want them in the finished product without a knowledge of what they are. They have to be a natural biopolymer, and we have to understand the full life cycle of those materials. So that's really where Forever Green are looking to close that gap on our knowledge and understand the full impact on the life cycle of our products. My final slide. So I've worked for 25 years. What does the next 25 years look like? Well, hopefully I will have retired. But there's no doubt, looking forward, the demands on our products are changing massively. We're moving from purely just compression to compression, flexibility and protection, because you can see the back of the delivery van there. That's not an ordered pallet where things are stacked on top of each other. There's no doubt brand owners want to move to fibre-based packaging, and they want to do it quickly. They want to do it now, which is fantastic news for us. And we need to support them, be clear, be concise, and be accurate with our guidelines on what we tell them. critically, I think the paper industry needs to keep pace with material developments to support those decisions and avoid the wrong decisions or even missed opportunities, because this really is a golden opportunity for our industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Guy, for that presentation, and Annika as well. And we do have some questions for you. If I start with Annika, there's a question from Samuel asking about water-soluble inks. They should be the best types of inks to use, but can you wash them away during the repulping process? Annika, can you answer that? You have to unmute your...
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
I guess all these soluble additives, inks and others, we have to really look into if they affect other or affects the process waters or the fibers. Does it change the fiber surface or the fiber wall? We don't have that knowledge today, how these new additives and bio-based soluble additives will affect the quality of our fiber resource.
So it's a difficult problem, in other words.
Yeah, I think we need to make research on these topics. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, there's another question that has popped up both in my head and in others, and that's regarded to this plastic waste. And Guy, you were talking about, well, you were even showing some really yucky stuff there in your video. So what do you do with that trash? How do you cope with that? That's the first question. And the next question is also, how can you, Annika talked about the different plastic grades really making a big, huge problem. If you have only one plastic grade, that would be much easier. So how do you deal with that in your operation?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is challenge number one. Because that plastic material, I think there's a colleague of mine on the call, Wouter Mensink from the Netherlands, and he's been dedicated to this for a number of years, because the Netherlands seem to be very far ahead in terms of waste management and so on, I think because of the lack of landfills and so on. Generally, because it's a mixed plastic, it's of no use to no man. It literally is. It's got every single type of plastic you can imagine, rubbers, polymers, latexes, so that's the problem. And it's also, if you want to try and find an end market for it, you're trying to sell a low-grade mixed plastic in literally, and I hate to use this term, a sea of plastic for recycling. Plastic recycling, I use the comment that paper is universally recyclable, because if you try and sell a recovered or recycled plastic, it has to be pure. They want to have a polyolefin. They want to have HDPE, not LDPE. Well, you saw that picture. That is every piece of plastic type of plastic you can imagine. So Wouter's been working very hard to understand how we can first get our plastic to a level that it's clean enough so we can get as much fibre off, and try to look at separation technologies to separate the different plastics. But that's I think where the main research is happening now. Because I'll be honest, the only option you have is very low grade plastic production, pelletizing for the energy industry, cement industries and so on, or simply waste to energy plants. It is that, and that's why plastic is our number one focus.
You won't be unemployed. I can understand that. You'll have lots to do there. So Søren also asked the question, are there any specific ongoing activities for changing the consumer behavior when it comes to, cleaning out the food of the bags before you throw them, or avoiding throwing small packs, etc.? Yeah, so I guess, Guy, you have been looking into that.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's a generational shift in this, to be honest. I think you see amongst the new generation coming forward, there's a greater focus on circularity, on resource awareness. So I think that's going to help us. But the collection schemes have to be there in the first place. And also the instructions on the packaging have to be very clear, because the labelling and the instruction they call it a call to action. So if you have a pack that's got 2 recyclable components and you have to separate them, make it very clear that you have to separate. I'll tell a story of a drinks bottle that had a plastic sleeve, and it said, before recycling, tear here to remove the plastic sleeve. They did a survey and they found that in most people in the UK, they thought that was the instruction to the recycling company, not to the user of the packaging. So I think a lot of it is education, but also clear labelling and clear instructions on the pack. And that goes back to Annika's comments on the CEPI programme.
That's interesting. So Sandra here has another question to Guy. How do you control / measure and guarantee the quality of the fibres you receive and use in your plants?
Very interesting. Yeah. So this is a really exciting new technology we've adopted in DS Smith, and we'll be rolling out near infrared. So we use a robotic. I could have had a video on that. I should have put that on there. But a robotic system that every truck that comes into the mill, the robot drills into the bales, inserts a near infrared probe, and through the absorption of that near infrared, we're able to then measure the plastic content, the inorganic content, and the chemical and mechanical pulp content of that material. Sadly, we can't measure fibre length and fibre morphology yet, but that's the first stage. That's like our firewall. And then in the paper mills, we run optical methods to look at the fibre properties, the length, the width, the kink, the curl, and we use that to control what we're bringing in. So we do like a scoring mechanism on the material.
A continuation of that question is actually from Samuel that is asking if it would be possible to have a chemical separation between pulp and plastic. What do you think?
Well,
pulp is more more polar, at least at a certain pH. So, and there's of course a difference in density as well. So could that be possible?
We separate plastics and all materials in our process through either size, shape or density. So we try and differentiate between fibre, which is generally, obviously, as you know, very small, 1, 2, 3 millimeters long and microns in width, from anything that's bigger or more dense and has a difference. So we do already separate plastics in that way. But still, we have to go through lots of washing cycles to actually remove the fibres from the plastic, because the fibre and the plastic, they do love each other, and they will stick together quite nicely. So it takes a lot to remove the fibre from the plastics themselves. But no, we haven't looked at that in more detail in terms of chemical separation.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Another question for you, Guy. Is UK looking at banning RCP imports? Same in the line of what China has done. Any insights on overall trade implications on RCP in general, and how does that trend looks? What does the trend look like?
Very interesting. The UK is an odd market in Europe in the fact we're a net exporter. So we have I think we collect something like 7 or 8 million tonnes a year of paper for recycling, but only consume around about 3.5. So there's a large export market out to the UK, into Europe and elsewhere. And then Europe itself seems relatively balanced in terms of its consumption, with most areas being self-sufficient or small movements across Europe. So no, I don't see that there'll be a ban at all. Okay.
I have another question for Annika here, and you were talking about the Forever Green. What is the role of RISE? You mentioned that RISE is a member of Forever Green. What is the role of an institute like RISE in that concept?
Actually, I will join the first Forever Green meeting tomorrow, so I'm not really the expert on this, but Forever Green is divided into different work streams with recyclability testing methods and scoring of recyclability in one, where I will participate, and also Guy is in the same work stream. And then we have one work stream working on these guidelines and how they should be designed to make it easier for the collection and sorting, and that is also workstream 3, to harmonize the collection and sorting and consumer awareness. And I'm not sure about workstream 4. I think that's the overall recyclability of paper-based packaging as a whole for the circular economy.
Okay, thank you very much, Annika. We're looking forward to see what's happening with that in the future. So by that, we're closing the question session, but feel free to put any other questions up on the chat, and we'll try to answer them after the seminar. There are two things, before we let you all go, there are two things. We would like to just make you aware of the fact that on the 20th of May, we'll have the next breakfast seminar, and it's called the Pulping for a Greener World. So we will address pulping in that seminar. And then I hope you all have your smartphones available, because we always try to finish our breakfast seminars with some input from you who have participated. So please put in the go into the menti.com and post that code that you see up in the on the top, and we'll just ask you a couple of questions. And the first question being, well, what did you think about the presentations? It's not this is not a competition of any kind. It's just a kind of an attempt for Helena and me to keep track of the reception of the seminar. So please put in, there you go. We have at least one, two, a couple here. We are constantly trying to renew ourselves and see to that we are doing the right things, inviting the right speakers and so forth. So that's great. Helena, can we go on to the next one while still, I think you can still answer the first one. Because we also are very keen on knowing how did you get information about this breakfast seminar? We appreciate you putting in their tip from colleagues. That's nice. And the last question is, please give us some feedback on your ideas for future topics. What would you like us to address? Well, you can, very interesting. That's good that you find this topic nice or relevant. That's perfect. If you have any ideas, please let us know, because Helena and I have big ears and we are trying to pick up whatever you in the audience think is relevant. So we are also, it's about 1 minute left until 10 o'clock, and we try to be, that's perfect. Appreciate this very much. Can we go back, Helena, to see how many people answered the first questions? Oh, that's pretty good. 24, 26, don't be shy. I see that 42 people are still there. That's perfect. All right. We thank you all very much for participating and hope to see you in the next breakfast seminar. And Annika, Guy, thank you so much for your very nice presentations, and I hope to see you in the future, hopefully not just digitally, but also in a more physical way.
Thank you, Pia. Thank you, Annika.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.